aftermath of 9/11, we did some things that were wrong. We did a whole lot of things that were right, but we tortured some folks.
We did exactly what needed to be done in order to catch those who were guilty on 9/11 and to prevent a further attack. And we were successful on both parts.
This report says it was not successful.
The report's full of crap. I think we were perfectly justified in doing it, and I'd do it again in a minute.
When you call for accountability for rights abuses in other countries, how you're going to be able to do that without being essentially laughed out of the room?
I would say, one, we would put our record against any record around the world, and we think it's very rare and unique for a country to decide to put out a report such as this.
All of that is wonderful. You're willing to be transparent about it, although I would say that it took quite a long time for this to come out. But if someone did wrong, are they going to be punished for it? And the answers from the administration seems to be no. So you seem to be saying that, well, we can just air our dirty laundry, or however you want to describe it, and that's it.
No good information has ever come from abusive practices. History shows that, and the empirical evidence of the last 5 years also shows that. So, if you want to torture people for unreliable information, and that's precisely what they did, works like a charm.
We're talking about a horrific roster of torture, both strategies, approaches, and also the number of people who are held in black sites around the world. This is not acceptable in a civilized society. And the question now is, who will be held accountable? I mean, to say we must put this all behind us, what does this say to any murderer in the United States? If they come to court and say, oh, I'm even admitting that I did this, they hand in a report, I did murder this person, but that was yesterday. Let's all look ahead. No, that's not acceptable. How do you enforce law and order? How do you ensure that your own citizens are not tortured in other places in the world when we do not deal with those who are involved with torture in a simple law and order way? But when the U.S. engages in these unlawful practices like torture, that actually decreases our national security. It threatens us, because it means that there is a license. We're sending a message that it's okay to do this, and then it's okay to do this to U.S. citizens. And I think it's very important to point out, for all the horrific details in this just executive summary, it's not even the thousands of pages that should be actually all declassified. This is only the tip of the iceberg. So this is looking at one strand. And ultimately, I think what has to happen now is that the United States has to show that those who engage in unlawful activity are prosecuted, and if found guilty, punished. And that would include President Bush, again, put on trial. If there isn't the evidence, he could be acquitted. But we're talking President Bush, we're talking Vice President Cheney, we're talking Secretary of Defense Rumsfeld. But the only person who's been held accountable is John Kiriakou, who worked, intelligence guy himself, who blew the whistle and ends up in jail for years. Now, that is not acceptable in a democratic society, that the whistleblower goes to jail and those who are engaged in torture go free. I think what's important is to know there's a distinction between the U.S. government and the American people. And when the American people have the information that's released in this report, and hopefully all of it will be released, I think they will put pressure on their government to reflect a very different America, an America that doesn't torture, that stands up for law and order in the world.